Oakland Raiders, a team that's filled to the brim with controversy this season. They are without a head coach. They have interim head coach, who's Rich Bisaccia, pictured here, and he is now rumored or stated by the Raiders to be getting an actual head coaching interview. This is his seize the moment type interview. He's going to get to go in there, get to interview with the team for his potential to be the Raiders' next head coach. And I heard some quotes. I've read some articles about this, and a veteran unnamed player from the Raiders had this to say about Coach Bisaccia. He said, "One reason we had some success in the latter part of the season this year, after all this controversy, of course, was we didn't have the Gruden grinder, quote unquote, grinding us late into the season." He said, what Gruden would normally do is he would run the hardest practice. He would actually kill the team late into the season. They would fall apart, and you'd get the typical Raiders meltdown that you saw every season. But the reason this team in particular performed so well through controversy and everything else late into the season is because Bisaccia listened to the players, took it easy on the back half of the season, and allowed the team to do as well as they did. They did pretty well in the latter half of the season, all things considered. And I think this shows that Bisaccia is a real players coach. He kind of has, the heart of the locker room, his ear to the players to know what their needs are. It sounds like he's a pretty nice guy, solid guy from University of South Carolina. He has some coaching experience there. That can't hurt. But I think he should get a shot. I mean, why not? How much worse could it possibly be for Oakland?
So I think there's two things that the Raiders have to, and this is Vegas, right? Not Oakland anymore.
But yeah. Well, I mean, it's all the same to me.
Yeah, it's all West Coast. It doesn't matter. But yeah. So there's two things the Raiders have to take into account here. And in Bisaccia, to his credit, like you said, they won their final 4 regular season games, got into the playoffs, and a lot of that has to go on him and his game management and practice management, and load management, and all that stuff. But I think the thing the Raiders have to really decide here is Bisaccia came in and he kind of steadied the ship, right? When he took over, he was a kind of a rough seas captain, so to speak, right? To use that analogy. But is he the guy for long-term leading the mission? Because, there are certain people in all walks of life. We see them in all our jobs, guys who are like come in when things aren't going well and fix problems, but they're not guys that can do day to day. They're not guys that can focus on 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. They're very short-term oriented. That's the Raiders have to decide. Is Bisaccia just like a short-term Band-Aid who steered the ship, to his credit, did a heck of a job doing it? But is he the long-term guy? And I think the Raiders have to make a decision. If they get a guy like Harbaugh from Michigan to come in, I think you go with him in a heartbeat. But if you don't get a Harbaugh, if you don't get a guy who has had proven success as a coach in the NFL, as a head coach, I think Bisaccia is an interesting hire. I really do. And I think the Raiders could do like you said, a whole lot worse than Bisaccia. I think they just have to be careful, because I can't think of an interim head coach who then became the full-time coach who went on to have long-term lasting success. Yeah. Jason Garrett for Dallas was like that. And they had some success in Dallas, but it didn't end well, right? Some guys are just good turnaround artists and not, long-term leaders and managers of football teams.
That's a good point. And you really do have to see there's probably a reason he was at the position that he was at, and he wasn't a head coaching candidate. But sometimes the most pressure creates diamonds, and maybe this is that diamond moment for Bisaccia. He really got to show his coaching prowess. But a couple other things that are going on with the Raiders that I think show keys into this, okay? One, obviously they fired GM Mike Mayock, which was a big deal. It is kind of like one of the ties to the Gruden era in Las Vegas. So they got rid of that. So also there's the controversy of, do they keep Derek Carr? Where is Derek Carr going to be long term in this Las Vegas offense? So you have those two factors to weigh in. So they're willing to get rid of Mayock, do they see Bisaccia as part of the Gruden contingent? Is he destined to be kicked out and they're wanting to bring in a whole new management team? Is it a Jim Harbaugh style team that they're just clearing house, getting ready for someone to let them take over, so to speak? Or is Bisaccia a guy who seems to have a real, be in touch with the needs of this team? Are they going to give him a chance? Get a GM who's maybe more in touch with the team and try to build a program off of what they already have. So I don't know do you have any thoughts? Like, do you think they'll give him a shot?
Yeah, so I'm willing to bet not, but I think he's their backup. So Bisaccia, I was trying to think of another analogy. Like Bisaccia is like the backup prom date.
Yeah.
It's a pretty enough girl. It's popular. No one's going to be mad at you or think you're a loser for going to the prom with Bisaccia if Bisaccia is your head coach. But if Jim Harbaugh says yes,
goodness, how can you say no?
You can't go that, man. You have a chance. That's a prom queen right there, right? So I think that's kind of what I think of there. I think the Raiders are kind of trying to gauge, okay, we know what Bisaccia is. We know players like him. We know he does a lot of things well, knows special teams and all that kind of stuff. But if they can get their guy at head coach, and a lot of it may depend on who they bring in at GM too. Like if the GM doesn't agree with Bisaccia's ideas, that could play a big role as well. But if they get their guy, if they get like a Harbaugh, like we said a bunch of times, look, there's not a lot of Jim Harbaughs that have had the level of success that he had in the NFL. There's not a lot of coaches that have gone to Super Bowls. And he basically turned the 49ers around. And when he left, the 49ers were terrible for 3 years until Shanahan got there. I think getting Harbaugh or someone at that level would be just a huge deal for the Raiders. But if you don't get them, look, you always have your backup date.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Does Las Vegas go with the prom queen, or do they settle for the backup, who's probably good enough still? We will have to see.